Water. It's the lifeblood of our planet, isn't it? Essential for everything, and really it should be a fundamental human right. Yet, despite how important it is, the reality of water access, well, it's way more complex than most of us probably think. Today, we're taking a deep dive into exactly that complexity. We're looking at the intricate realities, particularly in rural, developing areas. We'll be unpacking this fascinating study from southern Mali that, honestly, it really challenges some common assumptions about global water availability. Our mission is to look beyond just the simple numbers, beyond just seeing a tap somewhere, and really try to understand what actual water access means on the ground.
Yeah, and this study, it's really valuable because it goes beyond just theoretical models or these broad surveys. It uses this unique mix of actual on-the-ground field work, talking directly to households through interviews, and some pretty advanced spatial analysis. And this approach, it lets us get a handle on actual water use habits, which, like the study points out, is often just profoundly misunderstood in these regions. It's about getting down to the granular truth.
Okay, so let's unpack that term water access as they use it. When they talk about an improved water source, what exactly are we talking about?
Right. So they define that as a source that's protected from outside contamination. So think things like public standpipes, properly protected wells, maybe boreholes. And that's different from, unimproved sources like just an open well or scooping water from a river or pond.
Gotcha. That distinction seems pretty key.
It really is. And digging a bit deeper, we find something critical. Just having one of these improved sources nearby, it's often not enough for what you'd call true access. The idea of access, it's actually got several layers. Is the water safe? Is there enough of it? Is the source reliable day-to-day, sustainable long-term? And crucially, can people actually afford it?
Affordability, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then there are things like, how is the source managed? Are there user fees? Even social stuff, local factors, they all play a big role in whether these improved sources actually stay working and are genuinely accessible to everybody.
That's a powerful point. So the management piece is key then. It suggests just throwing money at building taps won't fix it if the human side isn't sorted.
Precisely. Infrastructure is just one part of it. You need to look at the whole system around providing water.
Okay, so let's zoom in on the case study. We're talking about Belekko, a town in southern Mali. Can you paint a picture for us? It's a rural place, maybe 6,000 people. They mostly get water from a shallow aquifer, right? And not much running water in homes.
That's right. People typically rely on a mix of things. Public hand pumps, some public standpipes, some are free, some you pay for, and also quite a few private domestic wells.
Right, the private wells too.
And this is where you immediately see that gap.
Okay.
The study highlights the difference between how things look on paper versus the daily reality. I mean, theoretically, Belekko seems pretty well set up. The survey found 6 hand pumps, 7 standpipes. That works out to about 1 improved source for every 460 people.
Which sounds pretty good, standard-wise.
On paper, yeah, it looks like great coverage. But as the study digs in, the reality on the ground, it tells a very different story.
So how did they get to the bottom of this disconnect between the official stats and what's really happening? What was their method?
Well, they used this really interesting two-pronged approach. First, a detailed 10-day field campaign. Right at the end of the dry season, they physically went and checked every single improved source. Was it working? What was the flow rate? And crucially, what was the water quality like?
Hands-on data.
Exactly. And then they combined that with over 100 really thorough household interviews, talking directly to residents about, how they collect water daily, what their needs are.
Okay, so what jumped out from those interviews and checks?
One of the most striking things was just how common domestic wells were.
Yeah.
They found that nearly every single household, literally all but one, had at least one dug well.
Wow, almost everyone.
Yeah. And about 70% of these households said they actually drank water from these wells. And they judged the quality based on, well, simple things like how clear it looked or how it tasted.
Which raises the obvious question, how does that perceived quality stack up against, actual lab tests?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it, if you're just going by taste?
Yeah, how reliable is that? And did people know the quality, or did they try to, treat the well water themselves?
That's a really crucial point they looked into. And yeah, they found something quite alarming, actually. About 65% of households did try some kind of treatment, often just adding a bit of bleach, like from a bottle.
Okay.
So they were trying something.
They were. But here's the kicker. Doing that often gave them this false sense of security. They thought, okay, I've treated it, it's fine. And that false confidence, combined with just the sheer convenience of having a well right there, meant that a staggering 55% of households did not use the improved sources, even when those sources were free and maybe just a short walk away.
And the really unfortunate truth, only 5% of those household wells actually met decent drinking water standards for both turbidity, that's cloudiness, and for coliforms, which indicates contamination, just 5%.
So the very act of trying to make it safer might have inadvertently stopped them from using the actually safer sources. That's quite a disconnect. Tragic, almost.
It really is. And shifting gears slightly, if you look at who's actually doing the heavy lifting, the water collection.
Who is it?
Well, the stats are pretty stark. It's mainly children. 59% of the time, kids are the primary water carriers.
59%.
Yeah. Women follow at 16%. Men, they're involved in fetching water in only about 6% of households. Really limited situations.
That's quite a burden on children. Okay, the study also brought in geographical insights, right, about how we measure access.
Yes, absolutely. Traditionally, people often use these simple circular buffer zones around a water point on a map to estimate who has access. Like everyone within 500 meters is covered.
Seems logical enough.
You'd think so, but this study really shows how that method can massively overestimate true access. It doesn't account for, actual roads or paths.
So what do they do instead?
They use much more sophisticated network analyses. These are based on the actual street layouts in Belekko. It lets you measure travel time and distance much more accurately, following the routes people actually walk.
And what did that reveal? A big difference.
A significant difference. The network analysis showed only about 59.2% of the town's area was genuinely within 500 meters walking distance of an improved source. And the traditional circular buffers, they overestimated that coverage by about 15%.
15%. That's a lot. So what does that mean practically?
It means that in reality, nearly half the town has to walk over a kilometer, possibly much more round trip, every day to get water from an improved source.
Okay, so putting all this together, the wells, the treatment, the distance, what was the big aha moment about what really drives daily water access?
The absolute resounding conclusion was distance. Distance is a massive deterrent. It's not just one factor among many. It seems to be the primary gatekeeper.
So proximity is king.
Pretty much. The study found most households who regularly used the improved sources. They lived within 500 meters. Most of the non-users, they lived further away. It sounds simple, but it's profoundly impactful on behavior.
And there was another piece, right? Something often overlooked. Transportation.
Yes, access to transportation, specifically carts. This was fascinating. Households that had access to a cart, they actually doubled their water consumption per person.
Doubled, just from having a cart.
Yep, it went from about 4.9 liters per person per day for those without carts, up to 9.7 liters for those with carts.
Why such a big jump?
Well, makes sense, right? Carts just make it so much easier. They minimize the physical effort, the time it takes, and you can carry much larger volumes in one go. It overcomes that distance barrier, essentially.
So a simple tool, a cart, makes a huge difference.
A massive difference in daily access and consumption.
Okay, but then there's this lingering quality issue, even with the so-called improved sources. What did they find there?
Yeah, this is the really hidden problem. Even for those sources officially classed as improved, the study found that 10 out of the 13 in Belekko actually had inadequate water quality.
10 out of 13. What was wrong with them?
Mostly issues with thermotolerant coliforms. That's a strong sign of fecal contamination or high turbidity, the water being too cloudy.
So even the good sources weren't necessarily safe.
Exactly. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, the implications are pretty serious. If you apply strict WHO guidelines, the true safe water coverage in Belekko drops dramatically. Even using less strict standards, a big chunk of the population still doesn't have access to genuinely safe water.
And people just assume it's okay.
It seems that way. The study suggests the locals basically assume water from improved sources is good quality, mainly because there are no routine monitoring programs checking it. It's, well, quite sobering, isn't it? Building the source is just the first step.
Definitely sobering. Okay, so the study didn't just observe these things, it tried to predict consumption patterns too.
That's right. They went a step further and built predictive models. And they found that simple models, trying to link consumption to just one single factor, they just didn't work very well.
Too simplistic.
Yeah. You need more than just one variable to really predict how people behave.
So what did work?
What proved really powerful were these multiple regression models. There's statistical tools that look at several factors together.
Yeah.
And they reveal that when you combine just 3 key things, the number of people in the household, the total travel time to get water, and the total travel distance, you could predict water consumption with amazing accuracy.
Oh, accurate.
Like explaining over 93% of the variation. It's like they really cracked the code on what drives water use in this specific context. R squared greater than 0.93, which is incredibly high.
Wow, okay. But here's the part that seems really counterintuitive. What didn't make it into that powerful model? What didn't predict consumption?
This is the truly mind-bending bit. Affordability, whether they paid for water or not, and perceived water quality, what people thought about the water's cleanliness. Statistically, they didn't significantly predict how much water people used.
Wait, really? Cost and perceived safety didn't matter much?
Not in their predictive model, no. Which is, well, it fundamentally challenges a lot of common policy assumptions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It shows this huge disconnect between maybe well-meaning policies focused on cost or perceived quality and what actually drives people's behavior on the ground in a place like Belekko. They're driven by other, more tangible things.
Like distance and time. And while all these variables like time and distance are obviously related, the studies show they're distinct enough that each one adds something unique to the prediction, especially when you factor in things like how long it takes to fill containers at the source or needing to make multiple trips a day. Each part adds a layer that the combined model captures.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive, it really paints a picture where these commonly accepted figures, the idea that over 90% of the world has safe drinking water, they're probably overestimates, aren't they?
It certainly suggests that, yeah.
Just having a physical source isn't the full story. We absolutely have to consider if it works, if the water's actually safe, and critically, how people behave, like how far they'll walk, or if something simple like owning a cart changes everything.
Mm-hmm. And that raises the big question for us, doesn't it? What can we learn from Belekko that applies more broadly? I mean, understanding these really complex factors, everything from cart access to the actual water quality, not just what people assume it is, that understanding is just critical if we want to design water solutions that are effective, sustainable, and actually meet people's needs in rural areas, and probably elsewhere too.
Absolutely. So something for you, our listener, to think about. What might be another seemingly obvious solution to a global challenge, maybe poverty or education, that if you really dug into it, like this study did, might turn out to have equally hidden complex realities driving it?